Hi, welcome back. It's Women's History Month, and as much as I would like to talk about some amazing women like Susan B. Anthony, who campaigned against slavery and for women's rights, or Rosa Parks, who wouldn't give up her seat on the bus and became a huge symbol for civil rights in America, or Malala, who was literally shot in the head defending women's rights for education. Today, I want to talk about something that affects me and 1 out of every 10 women in the world. And that's like 176 million women worldwide. Endometriosis. So what is endometriosis? Endometriosis is a condition where tissue that is similar to the endometrial lining in your uterus grows outside of your uterus in your abdomen. It can create scar tissue. Tissue can keep growing and attach itself to your organs, actually binding your organs together, and it creates some pretty terrible symptoms. So symptoms can include painful periods, bloating, painful bowel movements, painful urination, painful sex, bloating, did I say bloating already? Fatigue, nausea, depression, infertility, and the list goes on. But what causes endometriosis? Unfortunately, we don't know. But is there a cure? No. There are certain drugs and treatments that can offer relief, and I am not a health professional, so I'm not here to tell you one way is better than the other. But unfortunately, there hasn't been enough study. The average woman isn't diagnosed for 10 years after experiencing horrific symptoms. I was literally having pain before my period started, like when I was 11, I would have pain like every single month, like as if I was having my period, but I wasn't having my period, but I was having pain. My parents just thought I was having a stomach ache, which you could easily suspect. And then it progressed. It just got worse and worse the older I got. In fact, when I got into my 30s, it got really bad. My cramps were so severe. I could barely get out of bed to crawl to the bathroom, but I'd have extreme nausea. I would just feel so sick. And then I'd get uncontrollable diarrhea. I know this is probably TMI for you guys, but I think it's important that we talk about this because for so many years, I didn't talk about this. We have such a culture amongst women and men. We're told if you have cramps, that's normal. It's normal to have cramps. It's normal to have pain. It's normal. You're on your period. Of course you have cramps. So I would meet somebody who had endometriosis and they'd be like, yeah, my pain's so horrible. And I'd be like, gosh, I kept thinking like, gosh, if her pain is horrible, I can't even imagine because my pain is so horrible. It wasn't until I had been cast in this short and 2 days before the rehearsal day, I started my period and it was bad. The cramps came on so badly and I had so many uncontrollable contractions. I couldn't get off the toilet for 4 hours. And it was excruciating pain and I was screaming, like my husband didn't know what to do. It was just like, and while I'm laying there in bed, I get this text that they had changed the rehearsal date to the next day, where I know that like when my cramps start, like it's like 2 days of extreme cramps. The third day I can handle it, which was the original rehearsal date. But the second day I can't, like the second day is usually worse than my first day. So if my first day was any indication of how the second day would be, my second day would be like ridiculous. I really wanted to do this film. I texted back and I was just like, I can't do that rehearsal date. Can we keep the same original rehearsal date? I mean, it wasn't a huge deal. I wasn't getting paid for this. It was a student film. I needed some extra footage, but I didn't want to say like, oh, I have my period and my cramps are going to be too bad and I'll be bleeding everywhere and I'll be a mess. And the texts went back and forth and back and forth. The director decided to recast me It was pretty unfair. If you're an actor like me, you know how hard it is sometimes to go on audition after audition after audition. I had to make a change. I finally started vocalizing it to my doctors, my primary care doctor, my gynecologist, and I just said, listen, I have unbearable pain. I hadn't even been prescribed medication yet for this. I was literally just taking, like, over the counter, I was taking ibuprofen, and I was getting dismissed. They were like, well, you always had cramps? And I was like, yeah, I've always had these really awful cramps. Then you've always had cramps. But no one was saying, like, oh, it sounds like maybe you have endometriosis. Finally, one doctor listened. He prescribed me some pain medication. I was on Percocet and it did nothing. That's how bad it got. My husband and I went to a fertility doctor. Someone finally said to me, well, it sounds like you might have endometriosis. I had an idea that I might have endometriosis because I had been doing so much research. When you lose days and sometimes weeks of your life from pain, there's not much you can do but lay in bed and, like, research. It was literally over 20 years of symptoms. But that brings me to, how do you get diagnosed? The only way to get an actual diagnosis is through surgery. Endometriosis doesn't show up on an ultrasound, an MRI, a blood test, or an x-ray. You actually have to have a physical surgery. It's a laparoscopic surgery. I actually interviewed doctors, asking them, how skilled are you in this surgery? Would you be willing to do this? And I finally researched a very skilled endometriosis surgeon and ended up going to him for my excision surgery. And that has actually been a blessing because it has relieved a lot of my pain. And unfortunately, because my endometriosis had been undiagnosed for so many years, literally over 20 years, when the surgeon went in, they found that it was more severe than they anticipated. I had a lot of inflammation and it had progressed to stage 4. They weren't able to excise all of the lesions that were binding my organs in my abdomen together. But I have had a lot of relief since the surgery. So I'm not symptom free for sure. There are times that I feel some of these symptoms, but it is so much better. Because before, I was literally debilitated. I was in bed for 3 to 4 days during my period, and because the pain was so bad and my body would just be so fatigued after having my period, then it would take like a week to recover. Like, I had doctors asking me, well, you know, you should exercise while you're on your period. Don't you exercise? I'm like, exercise? I'm not going to be like the girl in the period commercials and the tampon commercials that are like, hey, I'm in white pants and I'm riding a bicycle, or like I'm swimming during my period. No. There were so many times where I would just lose my social life. I couldn't go out or do anything. Friends would call up, hey, do you want to meet up? No, I can't because my period. So I could literally be here for days talking about my endometriosis stories. The more we can talk about this and bring it up and create awareness, the easier it's going to become, the less taboo it will be. If you know someone who is experiencing this pain, please don't trivialize it. Please don't brush it off as being normal. Please have compassion and sympathy, and please encourage that person to get help, to seek help. And here's a disclaimer. If you have any of these symptoms, it doesn't mean that you have endometriosis. You need to bring that up. Bring up endometriosis to your doctor and get the care that you need. And if your doctor isn't listening, find an endometriosis specialist. Only you know your body better than anyone else. So listen to it and get the help that you need. Comment below if you have a story like mine. I'm Alexandra Berardi and I have endometriosis. For those of you who found value in this video, please like and please share it with someone who you know needs to hear this message. I'll see you next time.